Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring the Terminator role-playing game. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this tabletop RPG, where humanity fights for survival against the machinations of Skynet, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to start talking about rules and mechanics, starting with skill tests. The most common test made during a game is the skill test, and even more common are active skill tests. The first step of an active skill test is for the director to determine how difficult the test should be. These tests, of course, will allow you to solve many situations during the game. The difficulty of a task will determine the target number for the test. Generally, this is a range between 5 and 16, but occasionally this might be even higher than that. Directors or game masters can set the target number to anything they wish, though in general it is recommended one of the following 6 categories: mundane, which is 4, simple, which is 5, challenging is 8, complex is 11, strenuous would be 14, and insane would be 16. There are tips and advice and optional rules on how to increase the difficulty. For example, maybe a character isn't particularly trained in a specific skill set, or maybe he ignores everything about that skill set. Would it still be possible for that character to attempt a situation? All of that is discussed here. Now, when it comes to making the test itself, every skill test uses a dice pool made up of 2 types of dice. These are the success dice and a number of skill dice. These dice are rolled against the target number to determine how well the skill test went for your character. The success die is the most important die in your dice pool. It must be easily identifiable. It is recommended to use a different color of die for this one. The success die represents the core result of the test being made. Did you pass? Did you fail? If the die total after any modification is equal to or greater than the target number for this roll, then the roll is a success. If the total is less than the target number, the roll is a failure. A player will always roll 1 success die, which is a d10. Now, when it comes to skill dice, the remainder of the dice pool are skill dice. These dice are used to determine the margin of success of any skill test. They are rolled at the same time as the success die, against the same target number as the success die, and at most, a player will be required to roll 5 skill dice, for a total pool of 6 dice. When rolling an active skill test, the player rolls the success die plus a number of skill dice equal to the rank they have in the relevant skill, plus 1. Each die is considered independently. Do not add the values together. A player will always roll at least 1 skill die, or a d10. Once the dice pool is rolled, the character's skill bonus is added to each dice. A skill bonus is equal to the ranks of the skill being tested and the rating of the stat tied to that skill. All skills have such a stat, which will apply to the use of that skill more often than not. Should the director decide for any particular case they want to use an alternative stat, this should be communicated prior to rolling the dice. If the success die plus the skill bonus is equal or higher than the difficulty, then the skill test is a success. At any point, the director can grant a bonus to a player character. All the director has to do is modulate the difficulty and call it done, but players often prefer to govern their own fates and seek out elements that bolster their chances. There are 2 main mechanisms for this: preparation and technology. A player that chooses to spend a round preparing to make a skill test can, with the director's discretion, gain one of the following benefits. The player can choose to gain either +1 to their success die result, or 1 extra skill dice success. If the skill dice success is chosen, then after rolling, the player simply takes 1 additional skill die and places it as a 10. A character can prepare for as many rounds as they have levels in a skill, and the player can choose which of the effects they want to use for each and every round they prepare. Preparation is entirely situationally dependent, and a director may rule that you lose preparation if any of the following occur. The preparing character is forced to relocate for any reason. The preparing character suffers the loss of 3 or more hit points in a single combat round. The preparing character performs a different action other than the one they are preparing for. When it comes to technology, depending on the technology at hand, the player making the skill test may have the option of using one or more of the following special rules. Depending on the technology, the player might be required to expend ammo or uses on the task. Ammo is used for weapons, while uses is a simplified designator for disposable parts of all stripes. When using technology, if there is an ammo or uses requirement, it must be spent at the time using the technology is declared. The burst fire or superior rule. When rolling a skill check, a player may declare they will be using the burst fire or superior rule. If they do this, after rolling, the player may re-roll the success die. There is also the full auto or superb rule. When rolling a skill check, a player may declare they will be using the full auto or superb rule. If they do this after rolling, the player may re-roll any dice in the dice pool. The suppressive fire or sublime rule. When rolling a skill check, a player may declare they will be using the suppressive fire or sublime rule. If they do this after rolling, the player may re-roll any dice in the dice pool. In addition to this, the player gains 2 automatic skill dice successes on top of any that are rolled. There is actually an optional rule to make things harder, to make these tests more difficult if you want a grittier game. Now let's talk about margin of success or failure. While the success dice is the ultimate arbiter of success or failure, it is the skill dice that determines the real ramifications of the skill test. Significant success or failure can present the director with the opportunity to move forward the adventure or the scenario, throw a spanner in the works, or even award a hope point. That way you will obtain serious failure, a messy success, a solid success, an exceptional success, an incredible success, and an unbelievable success. In all cases, the director is the final adjudicator of any bonus or punishment that occurs from a margin of success or serious failure. You have a table allowing you to gauge or determine these margins of success. For example, if the success die succeeds and that's it, it's a messy success. And if you succeed with the success die plus 2 skill dice, it's an exceptional success. Now, when it comes to extended skill tests, this is a type of active skill test that simulates tasks that might not be achieved in a single combat round. In addition to the usual target number, the test will have a time frame that indicates the number of rounds, minutes, hours, or days. Within that time, you need to accumulate a number of successes. When it comes to teamwork, the characters that are assisting the character that is handling the brunt of a skill test will act as positive modifiers to the check. There are also passive skill tests. These are not a roll of the dice, but more a sense check of the character's capabilities versus the complexity of the task at hand. If the difficulty assigned to the test is mundane, then the task is usually considered to be a success without the need to roll any dice. Rolls up to a difficulty of complex may also be passed automatically, so long as the character has a suitable level of capability and is not under duress, in combat or facing significant other distractions. Passive tests are always considered to be solid successes, but margin of success is not considered for any of these further purposes. When considering capability, the skill and its connected stat are compared to a table. If the character has stat or skill ranks equal or greater than that listed in the table, next to the test's difficulty of course, then the character passes the test. Sometimes your character is going to be affected by an external force, such as a toxin, or fear perhaps, so you also make a test in those situations. Now let's talk about fate. All characters have a fate stat. It is used throughout game sessions to tip the balance on more complex tasks or those skill tests that would otherwise be impossible to achieve. Unlike other stats, fate is not a static value and instead represents a number of points that can be spent during the game. The character sheet has space for 2 values separated by a slash. The number to the right of the slash represents the stat maximum, whereas the number to the left of the slash represents the current amount of unspent fate. A character may spend fate points during their own active skill tests, or even on resistance tests. 1 point of fate spent after a roll has been made allows one of the following: reroll the success die, reroll any or all of the skill dice, add a +1 modifier to a skill test's dice pool per point of fate spent, add a +1 modifier to the resistance test per point of fate spent. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about combat. So tests are very easy to understand. You have a die that determines the success of the test, and the other skill dice will determine the granularity, the degrees of success or failure. Of course, your ranks in a skill are going to affect the success die, but everything else is derived from this success die skill dice mechanic. Very easy to understand. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. This has been Abraham El Jaguar, a professional game master. If you want me to run a game for you, please check out the pinned comment below. And remember, roleplay solves everything. Once again, thank you and see you later.